Romance of Sui and Tang Dynasties Chapter 67.
You know that specific feeling at the end of a long historical drama? The big decisive battle is over, the smoke's clearing, the winner's on the throne, and you think the credits are about to roll. But the camera just keeps rolling.
It creates a very specific kind of narrative tension. We're usually conditioned to focus on the climax, the adrenaline, the coup, the exact moment that power changes hands.
Right.
But today's source, which is Chapter 67 of the Sui Tang Yanyi, asks a much more uncomfortable question. What happens the morning after?
And it answers that by splitting the narrative completely in two. On one side, you've got the Tang court, consolidation of power.
The future Emperor Taizong, yeah.
But then the text cuts, and it's this jarring shift to a quiet, almost melancholy reunion of displaced noble women in this remote nunnery.
It's a brilliant juxtaposition. You have the winners in the capital, and then you have the quote-unquote losers, these women left behind by the war, finding a strange kind of peace in exile.
It's so much more than just a where are they now segment.
Oh, absolutely. It's a philosophical commentary on ambition versus, well, just survival.
And before we get into all the political maneuvering, and believe me, there's plenty of it, we have to talk about how the chapter is framed. It opens with this poem set to the tune of Fisherman's Pride.
Right.
And it's full of imagery like Zen lamps and snowy moons, and it explicitly references the butterfly dream. That is a direct callback to Zhuangzi, isn't it?
It is, and that's a critical signal to the reader. By invoking Zhuangzi's butterfly dream right at the start, the author is framing this entire political struggle, the rise and fall of whole dynasties, as potentially illusory.
So it's suggesting that while the characters take their fight for the throne incredibly seriously...
Exactly. On a grand cosmic scale, it might all just be a fleeting dream.
Which casts a really interesting shadow over what happens next. The source just drops us right into the aftermath of the incident at Shanwu Gate. The deed is done.
No preamble.
None. Qing Wang, that's Li Shimin, has killed his brothers, the crown prince Jiancheng and Yanji. The text doesn't dwell on the fight itself, it dwells on the cleanup. And the first order of business seems to be this narrative cleansing of the inner court.
Precisely. The text immediately zooms in on concubine Zhang and concubine Yin. Now, these were the favored consorts of the old emperor Gaozu. They were powerful people. But notice how the text treats their downfall. It doesn't frame their removal as just, a political necessity. It frames it as a moral failing on their part.
It's not just that they back the wrong horse. It's that they're portrayed as these petty women who refuse to accept the new reality.
The text even mentions they thought their youth and beauty would let them change strings.
Switch sides.
Just switch allegiance to Li Shimin. When that fails, and they get sent off to the Chenko Palace. Meanwhile,
the old Emperor Gaozu is just playing cards and ball games with his attendants, Yao and Xiao.
Li Shimin hasn't formally taken the throne yet. The transition is, in all but name, complete.
That brings us to maybe the most electrifying confrontation in the whole chapter. The interrogation of Wei Zheng.
Oh, this scene is famous for a reason.
So, Wei Zheng was a staffer for the defeated crown prince. By all the rules of this game, he should be executed. Li Shimin drags him in and asks him point blank, "Why did you sow discord among us brothers?"
And this is the pivot point for Li Shimin's character. He's moving from military conqueror to civil ruler. He's baiting Wei Zheng, really. He's giving him a chance to beg for his life.
But Wei Zheng just refuses to play that game. His response is so startlingly direct. He says, if the former crown prince had listened to my advice earlier, he wouldn't be dead today.
I mean, can you imagine?
It's unbelievable. He's not denying he tried to take Li Shimin down. He's saying, I tried to get him to kill you first, and he failed because he didn't listen to me.
It's a gamble of immense proportions. But look what he's actually doing there. He's demonstrating two things that Li Shimin desperately needs: absolute honesty and competence. He's saying, my advice was good. My master was the problem.
It's a masterclass in reframing. He turns his treason into a resume.
And Li Shimin bites. He doesn't execute him, he promotes him. Appoints him as advisor.
Zhen Shizubu.
That's the one. And this moment is foundational to the Zhenguan era of governance. It signals to the reader, and more importantly to the court, that Li Shimin values capability over past loyalties. It's a sign that the purge is over and the governance has begun.
It's practical.
It is, but it's also the author constructing the myth of the good emperor, who can turn enemies into assets.
Which leads to the old emperor finally reading the room. He sees Li Shimin's benevolent governance, and he abdicates. The era changes to Zhenguan.
But the text doesn't just chalk this up to Li Shimin being smart. It brings in this heavy concept of fixed numbers. Exactly, destiny. The author brings up the Chuhan contention, comparing Li Shimin to Han Gaozu and his rivals to Shang Yu.
That comparison is so important. Shang Yu was the hegemon. He was stronger, a better fighter, but he lost. Han Gaozu was often on the run, yet he won.
And the text seems to be arguing that talent and strength are secondary to having the mandate.
It's a fatalistic argument, isn't it?
The text basically suggests that Li Shimin's brothers died, not because Li Shimin was ambitious, but because they refused to accept their station. If they had just been content as vassal kings, they would have lived.
It effectively absolves Li Shimin of the fratricide. It says, I didn't want to kill you, but you fought against the fixed numbers of the universe. It turns a political coup into a cosmic inevitability.
And that very fatalism is the perfect bridge to the second half of our story. Because while the men in the capital are using destiny to justify bloodshed, the women on the road are experiencing the actual consequences of that destiny. We shift focus to Empress Xiao.
And the tone shift is drastic. We go from the imperial court to some roadside inn. Empress Xiao, the widow of the Sui emperor, is traveling with Wang Yi and Luo Cheng.
She's not being treated like royalty anymore.
Not at all. She's stuck in Zhu's inn for a month with wind chill. She has to pay her way 10 taels of silver to the innkeeper.
And these little details, they ground the narrative in a physical reality. Wind chill and hotel bills don't care about your former title. This whole journey is like a purgatory for them.
They're moving away from the center of power, toward the periphery.
And as they travel, they become the audience to the news. They hear commoners gossiping about the brothers killing each other back in the capital.
I love that perspective shift. To the commoners, it's just a rumor on the wind. Oh, the princes are fighting again. It makes the high-stakes drama in the capital feel so distant.
Almost irrelevant to daily survival.
Yep.
And that distance just grows until they finally reach the Nuzhen nunnery. This is their sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And when Empress Xiao arrives, the text describes the reunion with the other noble women almost like waking up from that butterfly dream we talked about at the beginning. She even compares their past lives to a hand-in-dream fleeting ambition that just vanishes.
This is where the chapter really becomes a study in survival. We get this roundup of characters we haven't seen in ages, all gathering at this nunnery. But I think instead of just a list of names, we can see 3 distinct modes of survival playing out here.
I agree. It's not just a guest list. It's a categorization of how people adapt after everything's been turned upside down.
Okay, so first you have the integrators. Look at Shu Yi. The text notes she's fat and grown up. In this context, that's a compliment. It means she's healthy, she's eating well.
Right. She's thriving.
Exactly. She's married to Wang Yi. She's a madam herself. She has successfully transitioned into a new, stable life within this new order.
She represents the path of acceptance. She's moved on. Then you get the independent operators, and Shafirin is the prime example. This is one of the most surprising updates. She isn't even at the nunnery.
No, she stayed behind in the Turkic region with the Zhao king.
And the text gives her that incredible line, where there is a will, there's a way. She's effectively carving out her own kingdom in the borderlands. She's rejecting the whole winner-takes-all game in the capital.
She's defining success on her own terms, completely outside Li Shimin's world.
It's a stark contrast to the third group, the drawers.
Yeah.
And the Nanyang princess is the perfect example. She is physically in the nunnery, but she is spiritually completely removed.
Deep in prayer, chanting, refusing to come out immediately to greet everyone.
She has renounced the world entirely. That's her survival strategy.
And then there's a fourth, quieter category, maybe the domestic realists. Yang Pianpian, the innkeeper we met earlier, she shows up. She's living with Zixi, and the text says they're like glue and lacquer.
Glue and lacquer, an inseparable bond. It's the celebration of the ordinary. While emperors are fighting for dominance, she has found happiness in a simple, obscure marriage. The text seems to be validating this as a legitimate, maybe even superior way to live.
It's this whole diverse ecosystem of survival, but there is a twist that ties this isolated nunnery right back to the martial world. We find out who's actually footing the bill for this sanctuary.
It's Qin Shuba,
the famous general, the man whose face is on doors all across China as a guardian spirit.
It's a really revealing detail. The man who made his name through war is using his wealth to protect those who were displaced by it.
And the specific reason for the gathering, it grounds the whole thing in Confucian values. It's not some political summit. It's an 80th birthday party for Qin Shi Bao's mother.
That is the ultimate anchor. Filial piety is the bedrock that survives even when dynasties crumble. Empress Xiao and her entourage, which is way smaller than it used to be, they arrive at the nunnery. And the text makes a huge deal about the sensory shift. It says the sounds of temple instruments just die down.
It's like the soundtrack to her life just got unplugged. And out of that silence walks a nun. Now, usually these figures are just, background scenery.
Right, like NPCs.
Exactly. But this nun is described in detail. The text says she has a sallow complexion, she's thin, she looks worn.
But Empress Xiao just freezes. She doesn't see some random nun. She knows this woman.
It's her daughter, Princess Nanyang.
That reveal, it just hit me so hard when I was reading this. You expect a royal reunion to be full of pomp, maybe a formal bow, but this is just raw.
Yeah. The text says the Empress wept aloud. It's this undignified, uncontrollable grief. It's a mother seeing her child completely broken.
It is. But then you get to the dialogue. Empress Xiao asks a question that, for me, just defines this whole first half of the chapter. She looks at her daughter, this nun in rough robes, and she says, "You were once a hibiscus on a trellis. Why are you now like grass by a fence?"
What a metaphor. Hibiscus on a trellis.
It's doing so much work, isn't it?
It really is. A hibiscus is this beautiful, heavy flower. It needs the trellis. It needs that structure, that support, that platform to be seen and appreciated.
So she's saying, you were designed to be supported by the empire. You were an ornament.
And grass by a fence is the total opposite. It's wild. It's low to the ground. It's basically a weed. The Empress sees this as a degradation, a loss.
But Princess Nanyang's response is where it gets really philosophical. She doesn't cry or apologize. She just says, "Mother, self-cultivation requires only peace of mind. Why is there a need to keep the skin alive?"
Why is there a need to keep the skin alive? It is such a brutal line.
I had to read it twice.
It's deeply stoic, almost Buddhist. She's basically created a defense mechanism. She's separating herself, her spirit from her skin, her physical reality. She's realized that if she cares about her appearance, her comfort, well, she's going to suffer. So the skin just doesn't matter anymore.
It's like she's telling her mom, "You're looking at the wrong thing. You're mourning the trellis, and I'm focused on the root."
Precisely. A total reframing of her existence. And she's not the only one. You've got Du Xianying there, who calls herself a hot ant, meaning a celestial form.
A hot ant.
Yeah, it's a phrase that means like extreme anxiety and smallness, like an ant on a hot pan, just scrambling and powerless. It just shows how massive the gap is between who they were and who they are now.
Speaking of where they are, let's talk about the nunnery itself, because this is where the story takes a weird turn. You expect a convent to be, simple, austere.
Bare walls, dirt floors, that whole grass by the fence vibe.
But that is not what they find. Not at all. Madame Qian leads them to the central altar. And this place is, well, it's nice. We're talking bright candles, brilliant banners, a high stone platform, a shrine carved from white stone. It sounds expensive.
It is expensive, and you immediately have to ask, okay, how does a small nunnery afford a white stone shrine? Where did that money come from?
And the answer brings in a character who isn't even there. The hero, Qin Xiong, or Shubao. Madame Qin explains that he paid for all of it.
But the reason why is what's so important. It's not charity, it's a debt. She explains that years ago when Qin Xiong was in distress, basically broke and starving, the old abbess gave him a meal.
Just one meal.
One single meal.
And for one bowl of rice, he builds them an entire sanctuary. That seems disproportionate.
Well, in modern economic terms, sure. But this is about yai righteousness, loyalty. In that world, a kindness you receive when you are at your absolute lowest carries infinite weight.
So because she fed him when he was a nobody, he has to over-deliver when he becomes somebody to prove his character.
Exactly. It's a social contract. If he just paid her back for the rice, it would be an insult. The lavishness of the shrine proves his honor. It shows that even when the empire falls, these codes still stand.
It's a beautiful idea. But then things get a little less beautiful. They tour the living quarters. And this is where the idea of equality among nuns just goes right out the window.
You're assuming there's equality to begin with.
Isn't that the point? You shave your head, you wear the robes, everyone's the same.
In theory. But this text shows us that the class structure of the outside world just climbed right over the monastery walls.
It starts with Madame Qin and Madame Dai. Their rooms are tiny. Madame Qin has a few yellow flowers. Madame Dai has a thatched hut. She even apologizes for her barren cottage.
It's rustic, is what you'd expect.
But then they point down the hall and they say, "Over there, where Madame Xia and Madame Li live."
Yeah.
It's clouds burying jade.
Such a poetic way of saying that's where the rich nuns live.
And they are not kidding. They get to Madame Li's room. First, there's a large moon gate, then a massive tree shading the yard, and inside, a golden lacquer bed with colorful bedding.
It's a suite, a 5-star hotel suite.
How is that even allowed?
Well, they're clearly from wealthy families. They brought their money with them. The text is showing us that even in seclusion, money talks. You can retreat from the world, but you can bring the comforts of the world with you.
So much for peace of mind. Apparently, a golden bed helps.
For some it does, and in this luxury suite we meet another character, a teenager.
Wei King, she's only 17.
Right, Madame Li's younger sister. She's sitting there writing calligraphy.
And Empress Xiao, being a woman of high culture, she immediately recognizes the quality. She praises the writing. It's this moment where you see the old Empress surface. She knows talent when she sees it.
It's a nice connection, but it also tells us this place isn't just a religious space. It's a hub for displaced women of a certain class. It's a refugee camp for the elite.
Which explains what happens next. Because I'd assume the evening routine would be, pray, eat gruel, meditate.
And instead, they have a party.
A full-on party. There's a vegetarian banquet, sure. But the vibe isn't solemn at all. They start reminiscing.
And then the wine comes out. But what's interesting is who drinks and who doesn't.
Right. The true believers, Madame Qin, Madame Di, and Princess Nanyang, they refuse. They stick to the vows. They're the ones in the thatched huts.
But the ones in the luxury suites, Madame Li and Madame Xia.
Oh, they are ready to go. They push the Empress to drink, and then they start playing drinking games. Guessing fingers, guessing fists. The text says they get half drunk.
It just shatters the whole illusion. For them, the nunnery is just a hideout. They haven't had a spiritual transformation. They're just bored noble women trying to pass the time.
And when the sun goes down, they just revert to what they know.
Which gets even better. Empress Xiao decides to sleep in Madame Li's fancy room, and Madame Li warns her, be careful, the kid, Wei King, kicks in her sleep.
It's such a human detail. Here's the former Empress of China, and she might get kicked in the shins by a teenager.
And Xiao just rolls with it. She jokes, okay, tonight I'll sleep with the second master. She gives the kid a nickname.
But they don't go to sleep, because the Empress spots something on the table.
Ivory tiles.
Pei Gao. Dominoes.
And the Empress, who just hours ago was weeping over her fallen dynasty, says, teach me how to play.
So deep into the night, you have this surreal scene. The former Empress on a golden bed slamming down ivory tiles with a bunch of nuns.
And the text gets so specific. It names the hands they play. Heaven 9, Earth 8. These are real combinations.
It's pure escapism, isn't it?
Totally. For a few hours, they're not exiles or nuns. They're just women playing a game. It's a way to numb the pain.
But reality crashes the party. The fifth watch comes, just before dawn. And it's panic mode.
Madame Qin rushes in. An official, Wang Yi, is outside with soldiers. The playtime is over.
And with the morning light, the old hierarchy snaps right back into place. We see it with the farewell gifts. Empress Xiao is basically a refugee, but she starts handing out silver like she's still on the throne.
The accounting is so specific.
Yeah.
6 taels here, 10 there. And she gives a separate 2 taels to Madame Li, the one with the nice room.
Madame Qin tries to refuse it, but they insist. Why? Why give away your money when you're on the run?
It's about status. You can't just say thanks for the room. To maintain your dignity as a royal, you must pay. If you don't pay, you're a beggar. If you pay, you're a patron. It reestablishes her power.
It buys back her status. So they pack up, there are tears, and they get on the boat to go to the Emperor's tomb.
But just as they're about to leave, the story hits the brakes.
Yes. The maid, little Shi, comes running back off the boat, back into the nunnery.
And they ask her, what is it? What did you forget?
And she says the Empress forgot a small makeup box in Madame Li's room.
A makeup box.
A makeup box. Of all the things to run back for.
It's the most important symbol in the whole chapter. Think about it. We've been talking about skin versus soul. Princess Nanyang has abandoned her skin to find peace. She doesn't care about keeping it alive.
But Empress Xiao.
Empress Xiao sends the maid back for the eyeliner.
It means she hasn't let go at all.
Exactly. Despite everything, the loss, the tragedy, the night in the nunnery, she is still holding on to her identity as a woman of the court. She still needs to present a face to the world. That box is the mask of royalty, and she refuses to take it off.
That is just such a deeply human contradiction. I'm mourning my lost empire, but I also need to make sure I look good doing it.
It suggests her transformation is incomplete. Or maybe she's resilient in a different way. Princess Nanyang survives by becoming grass and bending low. Empress Xiao survives by holding on, by keeping the makeup box, playing the tiles, handing out the silver. She refuses to be diminished.
So as they leave, with 50 soldiers and flags flying, that little box is right there with her. They leave the silence of the nuns behind and head right back into the noise of history.
And that's the tragedy and the beauty of it, I think. You can change your location, you can change your clothes, but shedding your past, that's the hardest part.
We're following Empress Xiao and her two loyal retainers, Wang Yi and his wife Xujie, back to Yangzhou.
And it really is chilling. I mean, reading this part of the source, I actually had to put the text down and just stare at the wall for a minute.
I get that.
But before we get to the bloodshed, we have to set the scene. They arrive in Yangzhou. This was Emperor Yang's playground. What's the atmosphere like now?
It's heavy. The text describes it less as a return and more like a confrontation with the past. They're met by some local officials, but the most important meeting is with a man named Jia Runfu.
And the description of him is very specific.
It is. He's not dressed like the new officials.
Sure.
The text says he has a spiritual and ancient look, a 3-strand beard.
And he's wearing a square scarf. Now, I know in these novels, clothing is never just clothing. What's the scarf signaling?
The square scarf is a massive signal. It tells us he's a recluse.
Okay.
Jia Runfu is disdained to serve the Tang. He's a refusenik. He lives in seclusion near the tomb on purpose.
So when he meets Wang Yi, the Empress's servant...
It's this incredible moment of recognition. Wang Yi remembers him from years ago, from when they used to visit with the emperor.
A reunion of the old guard.
It's a brotherhood of memory. They embrace, they catch up. And for a second, it feels like there's still some honor left in the world.
But that warmth, it gets complicated fast. As they're having this moment, two figures appear from the roadside.
Yeah, this part is just so sad. Two old eunuchs, Li Yun and Mo Di.
And they come running up, calling for Wang Yi. How does the Empress react to seeing them?
Well, this is where you see the first crack in her facade. She sees them, and she sees a mirror of her own fall from grace. So he even says it, back in the day, you two held great power in the palace. These were powerful men. And now...
Now they're guarding a lonely grave in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly. Vanishing into the landscape. It really underscores how far everyone has fallen.
But these eunuchs have news. Apparently the new local authority, a General Luo, he knew the Empress was coming.
Right, and he sent orders to set up this huge ceremony.
The works. Flags, tents, music, ritual officers, the full VIP treatment.
Which puts Empress Xiao in a very difficult position.
Because General Luo is a Tang official. He's one of the conquerors.
But he's offering her the dignity of her old title.
And this is what confused me. You'd think she would crave that validation, a chance to feel like an empress again, you know? Just for an hour.
You would think.
But she shuts it down completely. Orders all of it, the flags, the music, to be dismissed. Why? Is that just humility?
I don't think it's humility. I think it's a political act. If she accepts that pomp and circumstance from a Tang general.
She's participating in a play directed by the people who destroyed her husband.
Exactly. It's humiliation disguised as honor. So by rejecting it, she takes back a little control. She strips it all down.
Just the bare essentials, the 3 livestock for the sacrifice, wine, paper money.
And she even pays the ceremonial staff to leave. The text mentions a packet of money.
A tip.
Yeah, a transactional dismissal. Here's your money, now go away.
Yeah.
She wants silence. She doesn't want the noise of the new dynasty intruding on her moment with the dead.
Which sets up this much more somber, authentic atmosphere for what's about to happen.
Yes.
So let's talk about that atmosphere, the architecture of death, we called it. The text spends a lot of time describing the layout of the graveyard. It's not just a single grave.
No, it's very organized. And that organization is crucial. It's a court in the afterlife.
Wow.
As Xiao gets closer, she sees the main grave of Emperor Yang in the center, with this tall jade pillar, but on either side of him.
Are the martyr concubines? That title alone is just so heavy.
It is. On the left, Zhuge. On the right, Yuan Bao'er, women who died to show loyalty during the collapse. And then surrounding them are more graves, Lady Ji, Lady Lang. The list goes on.
And someone arranged this.
Yes, the prefect, a man named Chen Lang. He actually collected their coffins to create this underground harem.
That is, I mean, it's disturbing. It implies that even in death, the emperor is still defined by the people who serve him. He can't just be a man in a grave.
You have to be a monarch holding court. The hierarchy is fossilized. Death didn't end the court, it just froze it. And now Empress Xiao, the living wife, walks into this assembly of the dead.
The only one moving in a scene of statues.
Right.
And her reaction, this is the first real clue we get about her true character in this chapter. She falls down, she cries, which you'd expect, but it's what she says.
It stops you in your tracks.
She wails, "My late emperor, you died with so many people escorting you. How am I supposed to live alone?"
It's all about her.
So much self-pity. It's not grief for him. It's, you have all these people with you. What about me?
It is deeply self-centered. A virtuous wife in this kind of story would normally lament his lost potential or the tragedy of his fall.
But she doesn't.
No, she looks at the martyr concubines and she's almost envious of his entourage.
Which is such a sharp contrast with the other woman there, Zhu Yi, Wang Yi's wife.
A huge contrast.
She doesn't even go to the emperor's grave first. She goes to the side, to the grave of Zhu Yi.
And this is where the backstory is just essential. Zhu Yi isn't there just to mourn. She's there to report. Years ago, Zhu Yi gave her a mission. Look after my child, Xiao Yu.
That was the loose end from the previous era.
It was. And now Zhu Yi clings to the stone railing and she speaks to the spirit of Zhu Yi. But she's not complaining. She's announcing a victory.
A mission accomplished moment.
Exactly. She tells the spirit that Xiao Yu has become the Orthodox Khan. He's established, powerful, safe. Her job is done. She says, I have not failed the trust placed in me.
Which, in the Confucian framework of loyalty, is the highest possible achievement. She delivered on her promise.
She did.
And because that promise is fulfilled, the logic of the story seems to be that her life and her husband's, they now belong to the past. Which brings us to Wang Yu. He steps forward to address the emperor's spirit. And he says something that I found really hard to wrap my head around. He talks about stealing his life.
It's a phrase that just perfectly encapsulates that idea of old loyalty.
What does he mean?
He's saying he wanted to die for the country years ago when their dynasty fell, but he stole his life for these few years. He saw his own survival not as a gift, but as a theft.
So he was only staying alive for one reason.
To protect the heir, Xiao Yu.
It's like his life was on loan, and now the loan is due.
That is the perfect way to put it. He basically says, my to-do list is empty. I can finally return to serving you.
He isn't committing suicide out of despair. He's committing suicide out of duty. He's clocking back in for his shift in the afterlife.
Right.
And the way he does it, I mean, the text is incredibly violent here. It doesn't fade to black.
No, the violence is the point. It says he throws himself forcefully against this stone monument.
And it uses this really gruesome, poetic imagery.
Heavenly pavilion and flowery canopy divided into two halves.
A very stylized way of saying his skull split wide open.
Blood everywhere. His eyes remain open, staring. It has to be that violent because it has to be undeniable. He is smashing his way out of this world to get to the next.
The scene is chaos. People are screaming. But then, Suayer. She sees her husband on the ground and she doesn't scream.
No. Her reaction is terrifyingly calm. She clears the crowd away and she speaks to his corpse.
What does she say?
She says, husband, you are a true subject of the Sui. You go serve the emperor. I'm going to go report to Sister Gear.
You go serve the emperor. I'm going to go report to Sister Gear. She says it like they're splitting up to run errands.
She totally de-escalates death. For her, the barrier between life and death is just a door. Her husband walked through one, and now she needs to walk through the other to find her mistress.
And she turns to Zhu Yi's steel.
The text says, fragrance vanishes and jade shatters. He smashes her head against the stone, dies instantly.
A double martyrdom. In the logic of this story, this is a perfect ending, isn't it?
It is the ultimate aesthetic of loyalty. They've tied up every loose end. It's supposed to be the emotional peak of the chapter.
But then, and this is where you just get whiplash, we turn to Empress Xiao. She has just watched two people kill themselves for her husband's memory.
You'd expect a eulogy. You'd expect her to be moved.
Instead, we get an internal monologue, that is. It's absolutely withering. And she's startled, sure. But her first clear thought is,
two foolish servants.
Foolish. Not brave, not loyal. Foolish.
She dismisses their sacrifice in a heartbeat. And then her mind immediately pivots to her own survival. She thinks, now that they're dead, who will go with me to King Jianpu?
That's the moment that got me. She's worried about her travel itinerary.
Yes.
Her most loyal followers just died in a blood sacrifice, and she's worried about getting a ride to the next town.
It's pure, cold pragmatism. The text even shows her debating it. She asks herself, should I die with them, or should I leave them?
A split-second calculation.
And she chooses life. But she doesn't just choose life. She chooses to see Wang Yi and Shuai as broken tools. They were useful, now they're not.
And then comes the transaction. This felt so symbolic. She pulls out 50 taels of silver.
This is the definitive action of the survivor.
Yeah.
She hands this over to Jia Runfu and says, "Here, buy 2 coffins, bury them."
It's a settlement. She's paying off the debt of their loyalty with cash so she can move on.
No offer to stay and mourn, no offer to build them a monument, just get them underground so she can leave.
And in the same breath, she asks Jia Runfu to escort her to Qingjiangpu.
To meet Master Luo.
Wait, Master Luo? As in General Luo? The guy whose ceremony she just rejected.
The very same. She rejected his flags, but now she needs his protection.
So when she had Wang Yi and Zhu Yi, she could afford to be proud.
Right. She could reject the Tang general's pomp, but now that her staff is dead, she immediately realizes she needs a new patron.
She swallows her pride.
It's almost reptilian in its survival instinct.
What about Jia Runfu, the hermit, the old guard? He just watched his friend do this. Does he push back?
He does not. And that's the tragedy of the survivor. Jia Runfu takes the silver. He tells his son to handle the burials, gets on his horse, and agrees to escort the Empress.
So the suicide of his friend didn't inspire him to die?
It just burdened him with a new job.
So they just leave them there, the loyal couple left in the dirt of Yangzhou, while the Empress and the hermit ride off to find safety.
And it just highlights the total incompatibility between the martyr and the survivor. For Wang Yi, the story was over. For Emperor Xiao, the dynasty was just a vehicle. The vehicle crashed, so she's getting out and walking.